play caller in Hurts' ear. Mina, we'll keep it in the NFC East. You've got the Giants, so you've got options to set a franchise record for losses. What are the three biggest questions or concerns for New York this offseason?
Start with the obvious, quarterback. They're going to have to figure out the quarterback position. This is a no-brainer. Whether or not it's a trade for Matthew Stafford or a draft pick is something that will be discussed and debated in the coming days, but that's obviously the most pressing need. Then I'm going to go cornerback. This pass rush, this defensive line is very talented. But behind them, there were holes in the secondary. You got young corner, Drew Phillips in the slot. I want to see, can they get something more out of Deonte Banks, or do they need to add to that position? I think they should bring in some competition. Finally, offensive line. I'm focusing on the interior here. Really, though, left tackle Andrew Thomas is the only position you feel super good about. I know you got a young center, but this is a priority for me because regardless of whether they draft a quarterback or they trade for Matthew Stafford, who is an aging, somewhat pressure-sensitive quarterback, you got to fix this offensive line because at the moment, whoever walks in under center is going to be set up to fail unless there's better protection, particularly on the interior. I think both of those guard positions are something that I would look to improve if I'm New York.
And it's been an issue for years. 85 sacks allowed in 2023 was 20 more than anybody else. Better last year. But back in 2023, Washington was actually closest to New York in sacks allowed. Jeremy, this team was the darling of the NFL in 2024. Rookie Jaden Daniels taking everything by storm. So what are the three biggest questions, concerns for the Commanders this offseason?
Yeah, I'm going to start in the trenches. How does GM Adam Peters in his second year develop the offensive defensive line? I think when they really stretch the makeup of this team and how they want to win, this is where they start. Offensive line, they kind of rebuilt it on the fly last year, did pretty well, but I think they'll add reinforcements there. They need an extra pass rusher. I think they'll add one either in free agency or the draft. It will look different next year. They also have a ton of really good in-house free agents that came off one-year deals that played well last year. Bobby Wagner balled out. He could be back. I'd be shocked if Zach Ertz is not back. He had a lot of chemistry with Jaden Daniels. Dante Fowler, pass rusher, they have to decide on. A lot of guys like that, they got to decide. And then wide receiver. This is the question that all Commanders fans want to answer. Who's going to be our number 2 wide receiver opposite Terry McLaurin? I don't necessarily sense that Washington's going to spend or splurge here big time, but they will address it, certainly. And there are a lot of players out there that fit. We talked about Cooper Kupp earlier via trade. That could be an option. Christian Kirk in Jacksonville, if he's a cap casualty, he went way back with Cliff Kingsbury from their Arizona days. They did well together, so that could be an option as well.
Well, if they do want to splash around a little bit in that wide receiver market, they have the cap space. They have a ton of cap space in D.C. Then there's Dallas. Off a disappointing 7-10 season that saw Dak Prescott tear his hamstring, missed the back half of the year. Now you got a new head coach within the walls at the Star, former OC Brian Schottenheimer. Cowboys might be more than a one-person job, so we'll get everybody in on this. But Jeremy, start with you. Give us the biggest question hanging over this franchise as they enter free agency and the draft.
Yeah, will they pay Micah Parsons, and how much are they going to pay him? Those are the two questions. Now, luckily for our programming at ESPN, Dallas is going to stretch this out until August or early September.
Yeah.
They love to wait on these deals, but talking to people around the league, they do not buy that Dallas would trade Micah Parsons. They believe that Dallas is paying their star players, even if they take a while, that they will get this done. It's going to cost at least $35 million a year on a top-of-market contract, but expect that to get done at some point.
Google it, Moogle it. Jeremy, I like how you're talking. That's the only reason I didn't put him on Get That Bag.
Get That Bag.
I'm going to go interior defensive line, right? I'm going to go interior defensive line. This has been an issue for Dallas. One, stopping the run, but also someone that can get after the passer consistently. We like Odigizua. Me and Mina have talked about him throughout the season. I believe he's a free agent as well, but this is a position that has not come to fruition for the Dallas Cowboys. Even when they were playing phenomenal defense, all of that was pressures and Micah Parsons and putting in these green dog kind of hybrid rushers. They haven't had an interior pressure guy probably since Jason Hatcher, who left and went to Washington and played well. But I want to see them address that, not only to help in the run game and anchor that, but someone that can be dominant physically on the interior and getting after the passer.
Yeah, interior defensive line's a great pick. I'm going to go on the other side of the ball and say wide receiver. Dallas has a wide receiver 1 in CeeDee Lamb, and then they've got a bunch of wide receiver 3s, but they don't have a secondary option a secondary playmaker in particular for Dak Prescott in this offense. A name that I'm going to throw out is somebody who I think will be available for them in the draft, and that's in-state from Texas. I really like Matthew Golden, who I've been watching this offense the last few days because they've got a lot of draftable players. He's, for me, just really satisfies that big play potential. He can play on the perimeter, so you can put CeeDee Lamb in the slot. He's got incredible hands. I am telling you, the amount of times this kid made Quinn Ewers right purely because of his catch radius and tracking ability, as well as the late adjustments downfield, pops off the tape. So he's a receiver I like, and the type of receiver that I think Dallas needs to pair with CeeDee Lamb.
MK, I love it, and I love going to the draft. Dallas does draft well. We have talked about that. They usually get a lot of production out their players. But Stephon Diggs is out there, Deebo Samuel's out there, and Cooper Kupp. And I heard Schottenheimer say in his press conference, we want to modernize this offense with a bunch of shifts and motions. Deebo and Cooper Kupp comes to mind with that. Elite second behind CeeDee Lamb could be a Stephon Diggs healthy. I'll be interested to see if they make a play there, but more than likely it'll be MK through the draft.
If Jerry Jones can nail the draft, sans fourth-round pick, Cowboys be back on track. Maybe get back to an NFC Championship game for the first time. Focuses on prospects' journeys to the draft. Draft season, though, kicks off in earnest at the NFL Scouting Combine. We're exactly 1 week from workouts in Indianapolis. Matt Miller's a huge part of our coverage there, and he joins us now. Matt, give us the 3 storylines you think we'll be talking about at length when things get underway next Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest names in this draft class is Colorado's Travis Hunter. He won the Heisman Trophy. He's a two-way superstar playing wide receiver and corner for the Buffaloes. And the big question is, what's he going to do at the Combine? We don't know if he's going to work out. I think it's very interesting to see following last year when Marvin Harrison Jr., the superb Ohio State wide receiver, said, no, I'm good. You can watch the film if you want to see me run. Let's see what Travis Hunter does at the Combine. And by the way, someone please ask him, is he a corner or a wide receiver? How does he see himself in the NFL? Now, standing on the defensive side, this group of defensive ends especially. You heard Marcus Amina talking about this group a little bit earlier. Michael Williams from Georgia, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, Jordan Burch from Oregon. Just 3 out of a great group of defensive end prospects who are absolutely going to light up the track in the agilities when we get to Lucas Oil. Cannot wait to see these guys work out. And finally, I think the big conversation, who's QB3 in the 2025 NFL Draft? It seems as if Miami's Cam Ward has established himself as the top passer, but I've talked to 3 NFL scouts this week who think Ole Miss's Jackson Dart has a shot to leave the Combine as QB2, which would push Colorado's Shedeur Sanders to the 3rd spot in this year's draft class, which I think would shock all of us. But crazy things happen at the Combine, and a good workout by Jackson Dart could certainly start to push his rise up. I have him ranked as the 3rd quarterback in this draft, but as teams dive into the tape, as they get past things like the Senior Bowl and prep for the Combine, Jackson Dart definitely has a lot of buzz pushing him up in that direction.
And if Dart does hit the mark in Indy, we've seen teams reach before and have success. The numbers in Oxford were great. Dart averaged 10.8 yards per attempt last season. That's the 2nd best by any Power 5 player in the last 4 years, sandwiched between Jaden Daniels 2023 and CJ Stroud back in 2021, both of whom ultimately went number 2 overall and won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Mina Kimes, I know Dart's unlikely to go number 2 overall, but that's some good company on that graphic. What do you think of Dart and the possibility of him working his way up to QB2 in this draft?
It's shocking to me. I mean, I don't doubt what Matt's saying at all, but just having watched him, I guess I'll say this. The numbers are great, but a lot of it is a product of the offense on tape. It's very heavily schemed up. He does have, I believe, a stronger arm, so I could see a team being maybe interested in the upside there. But you see also questionable decision-making, some problems under pressure, not a lot of anticipatory throws. Whereas with Shedeur, well, yes, I have some issues with the pocket management, although the offensive line was a big problem. There's just higher-level quarterbacking on tape. The accuracy, the decision-making, the processing is all there. So it's easier for me to envision his skill set translating to the NFL, but I guess sometimes teams do like the idea of a more speculative prospect in the upside, Matt.
We've seen it before, right? I mean, even a guy like Anthony Richardson with the traits gets pushed up the draft ahead of some other guys. When I heard this, my first thought was, okay, teams are not yet convicted on Shedeur Sanders, and they're headed into the combine kind of wanting their minds to be made up. And I remember that happening with C.J. Stroud. There was a lot of talk where C.J. Stroud is going to be drafted. He had the great combine workout, and he solidified himself as the number 2 quarterback in that class behind Bryce Young. So this might be a situation where Shedeur can solidify, but like Travis Hunter, I don't know how much we're actually